So very quickly, the last 5 years, we're now 5 years deep in our regenerative ag program. As I mentioned, it started primarily with the cropland side, feeding our dairies, but we are now moving closer to 150,000 acres across the US. And these are just a quick example of some of the KPIs that we're measuring for. We're obviously looking at a number of different practices on the crop side, but then again, with manure practices and ultimately with the animal care itself. So this is a very data intensive program. This is a program that we offer to our suppliers. It's voluntary, but we obviously highly incentivize it and highly encourage it so that we can have a better understanding of what the full impact and opportunity is with our supply chain. These are last year's numbers. They're changing. We're probably closer to 100 farms now. As I mentioned, getting up close to 150,000 acres. This actually represents very close to 70% of our milk volume now that is in our program. So that gives us that quantitative benchmark for that percentage of volume in those number of farms. Again, this is just a quick overview of the types of policy tools that we've been experimenting with and also advocating for. It's typical in the US for a farm, so that they use what's called a cost share. There's a very popular program called the Environmental Quality Incentives Program that's available to nearly every farm in the country, especially dairy farms. That program has significant opportunity and flexibilities for a variety of different practices, but it can also be cost prohibitive from a transaction cost perspective and sometimes inefficient for a supply chain partner to use. So we've been playing with different grant opportunities as a way to aggregate dollars and then distribute them with Danone budget. These are not dollars coming to Danone. I want to be very clear. It's a question of amplifying, in some cases, even doubling our Danone budget that would otherwise go to farms with these federal dollars so that we can scale and really move faster and quicker across more farms. It's really, at the end of the day, all about the farm investment that we can put on the ground. Another thing that we've been learning is that, it's typical that a lot of our government policies will think about management practices and how to cost share those practices. One of the challenges, especially with manure, as many of you know, the practice itself is dependent on very expensive equipment. And that equipment, obviously, we'll talk about this in a second, varies on the farm, varies on the size of the farm, varies on the design and the climate. But again, the programs often aren't designed to tackle $500,000, $750,000 equipment. So we've been experimenting with ways to use the grants in creative ways to defray those costs for the farm. Grain processing is another, obviously, for feed. Again, we think about various hub and spoke arrangements. A dairy often can be a hub, in which case we can then recruit various acres off that farm for feed as well. So designing a number of different models using policy, again, as the accelerator piece to finance this. Very quick, partnerships are absolutely key. Danone is very unlikely to be successful applying for these dollars by ourselves. Obviously, we need the farm suppliers to want to participate first and foremost, but then we have to think about others. We have a key partner in sustainable environmental consultants here in the US. They're our data partner, our verifier. They're out there collecting data with the farm, providing technical assistance as well. Absolutely key to executing, number one, but also being attractive with various policy arrangements. And then finally, as I mentioned, this is just an absolutely unique, unprecedented opportunity over the last year. Danone was a part of a partnership where we put together a very creative proposal and was accepted. It was a $70 million opportunity. There are a number of different partners involved here. Methane and manure are a key part of it, as well as some feed and grain opportunities. But this is a massive opportunity for us to scale across dozens and dozens of farms in our network, again, which would otherwise be very cost prohibitive manure improvements.